Welcome from Table Tennis Scotland. My principal guest tonight has been involved in the game for over 40 years. To put this into perspective, in 1978, when Sue Collier started playing, Nottingham Forest were the league champions. In 1980, when Emma started playing, Nottingham Forest were the European champions. So there we are. I'm also pleased that we have Ian McLagan, who is the chairman of the Scottish Vets, and he will be giving us an insight into the vet scene in Scotland and the vet scene worldwide. Now, once again, Mark is my co-host. Mark is a junior international and a national selector, and he's warming up to be a vet, in which he's got 2 years to wait. Callum Morrison is manning the YouTube questions. And Callum, as you know, is our British champion. And also we have Holly McNamara, who's both a junior and senior international. Now, we're working to a different format from what we've done in previous weeks. I've managed to invite Sue and Emma to come for 2 weeks because they have a long history in table tennis, as coaches, as players, as cadets. They have great knowledge of the women's game, but that's all going to be covered next week, because this week we're going to concentrate on the vet scene. Now, the introduction which I had for both of these players, I've torn up because Sue Venner put a note on Facebook, which I'm going to read out to all of you. And she says, our girls flying the Vets flag. We don't usually post these events here, but this is an exception. 2 of our girls, Emma Rose and Sue Collier, are appearing on Table Tennis Scotland's YouTube live tonight. Both Vets national champion, both multiple Masters winners, both England internationals at several levels, both Vets committee members, and both damn fine to have fun with and a drink on a tournament Saturday night. So welcome from Scotland to Emma and Sue, and we're going to have a good night. Right, I'm going to start off by asking Emma first, then Sue, and then I'm going to hand over to Ian. And I'm going to start is, what is your most memorable title, Emma, as a vet?
I think that would probably be the last nationals I won in 2019, because obviously we did play this year for COVID. It was the 3rd one I'd won, but the build up to that, for the last 2 years before that, I hadn't won a single event. I went through a real sort of bad patch where, you know, I couldn't seem to buy a win. I sort of almost at the point where I thought, do I want to do this anymore? And I had never had those sorts of thoughts. And I was also due a knee operation 2 months later, so I had knee issues. And I just sort of rocked up to that sort of tournament, having no expectations. And to coin a phrase, played a blinder. One of those almost out of body experiences where you look back at the final, and I honestly remember the last point only. It's just one of those things where everything clicked. And I think that was probably the most unexpected, probably the most pleasing as well.
Could that have been because you didn't overthink it?
I think so, yeah. I think, you know, I had no expectations. There was no pressure. I wasn't number 1 anymore. So I just think, look, let's go and enjoy it. It'll be the last tournament potentially it was going to be at least 6 months for the knee operation. So I just thought, well, just go and enjoy yourself. And I think because you were relaxed and no expectations, even up to the final. So that was, totally unexpected, really.
And who did you play in the final?
I played Sarah Williams in the final, who again also been unbeaten for 2 years.
Yeah, wow.
You played the semi?
I beat Sue in the semi, I'm afraid. Yeah, sorry, bud. So it was very unexpected.
Brilliant. Right, I'm going to ask a similar question to Sue. Your most memorable next week I'll be asking you about when I was your captain when you was a cadet abroad. But this week I want to ask you, what is your most memorable Vets title, Sue? You've won plenty.
It's got to be my world doubles bronze in Auckland, New Zealand in 2014.
Who was your partner?
Sarah Sandley.
Wow, wow, wow.
So Graham's sister. So we got together in Auckland, and my dream as a vet was to get a European or a world medal. And we didn't go in with any expectations. We played the round before the medal, and like you're saying, you take your foot off the pedal. We were winning, and luckily to my coach, she turned my head round, because I think when we had the medal inside, we just wobbled. And it was amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely amazing. I've still got a dream of a singles European or world medal. Whether that might happen in the 90s, but
Yeah, yeah.
now.
Not long then.
And so in you know, you got a bronze medal. Were you close to getting a silver, or
No.
maximize? Or
No, every world's really, I've done really well. I've got to the last 8 a few times, but I always, in the singles or the doubles, come up against the winner.
yeah, yeah.
It's just the luck of the draw. And no, we didn't have a prayer really, but the experience was, you could tell that they were going to win it. The woman I lost to in the singles, you knew she was going to win it.
Excellent, excellent. Was it that big stadium in Auckland? I've been there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was a little bit disappointed because every World or Europeans, they have the podium set up from the beginning.
Yeah.
To go and sort of, when nobody was looking, just stand on the #1 spot and pray and do #3. And all I wanted to do was stand on a podium. So when we got to Auckland and they had the medal ceremony, they had #1 on a big platform, the next one on a platform, and we were stood on the floor.
Right, yeah.
Well, that didn't matter. I had a medal around my neck.
Well done, well done. Right, Ian, I'm going to hand over to yourself. You're chairman of the Scottish Vets. Tell us how you got involved. Well, I'm going to, because your story is different, if you can give us a little bit more background of your transformation from player to Vets chairman.
Okay. I started playing in 1960. I don't know where Nottingham Forest were at that time. Probably a pretty...
They were the FA Cup holders.
Were they? Oh, well.
Yeah.
As I started then, in Dundee, we had a tremendous number of juniors who were coming through, and I didn't make the grade. I must admit, I drifted into the management side of it, the secretary, match secretary, things like that. And then it all changed in 1992 when I had a phone call to hold a Vets tournament in Dundee. And the feeling there was amongst the players that it was time for the Scottish veterans at that time. I don't think it had any sense of direction, and they wanted to wind it up. And unfortunately, people like Peter Shaw was there, and the great Johnny Campbell. Johnny had won the Dundee Tournament Midlands event, opened as a junior way back in 1952, I think it was. And Johnny, along with my old gym teacher, Eddie Still, and Helen Elliott, who used to come to the Vets tournaments until just before her death, that was the Scottish team. In 1992, it all changed. They had a break, and the feeling amongst a lot of players was fold the thing up. But my sidekick at that time was Leslie Ann Harris. And Leslie Ann and I decided, well, let's do something about it. And we were elected chairman and secretary, and the rest is history. Leslie Ann did a power of work, fantastic person, and eventually she had a bright idea of expanding the Vets international events. Basically, we had an average attendance about 20-25 to tournaments. Leslie Ann and I talked about widening it, and we had the first home countries in Dundee, and that was Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales. And then Isle of Man came in, and then Guernsey, and now we've got Jersey, and it's now the seven nations. We now call it the Home Nations Veterans. Each country takes a turn in holding it. Now, as far as the Scottish Veterans are concerned, our membership seemed to take off in the early 2000s. Up until recently, we've had an average entry between 60 and 65 for our events in Bathgate. And can I just say at this time, a little plug. In line with Table Tennis Scotland, the Scottish Veterans Table Tennis Association have decided not to arrange any tournaments at all before 2021. This is in line with our national body, and we feel we can't organise tournaments if Table Tennis Scotland aren't doing the same. So any Vets members saying are listening and watching, I'm sorry, no events till next calendar year. The veterans system we've got in Scotland is we have a central venue. We meet in Bathgate. We have five tournaments, and emphasis is on playing. And most of the players have a minimum of 6 to 7 games per event per day, and it actually builds them up for when they go to international events, wherever they're held. In our events, you might say in each age group, there is maybe 1 or 2 players who are maybe not as strong as the rest. And our top players have got to play well in all events, at all stages. And it's amazing, the transformation. We've put teams into the British Veterans League and the Scottish National League as well. So our top players are getting better and better. However, it's got to be said, we cannot compete on an equal footing, say, with England because of the numbers they have. But I think our chaps and lasses, they do enjoy the competition, especially against England, Ireland and Wales, who seem to be producing tremendous vets players. We have had a lot of players coming through the vet system who were originally very good in their younger days. Johnny Campbell for one, Jerry Campbell. David Lowe has been in a few of our tournaments, Stuart Crawford, and these are just a couple of the names of the people who have actually played. We run the Vets tournament, we have a committee. I've been there since 1992. We have a committee which works out 3 from the east of Scotland, 3 from the west. And in all these years, we have never ever had a major fallout, disagreement or anything. It's been harmony. And I think this is transferred to the players. They come up and they know they're coming to play and they all enjoy it. I actually run the tournament as well as play. I have made a few mistakes. I've admitted that to the players. And I say it's a fantastic atmosphere. So that's basically the background to the Scottish Veterans.
Brilliant.
We have one slight reservation, is that there is, as was hinted at the beginning of this programme, a lack of women. We are very, very thin on the ground there. And I know there are many reasons for it, but we must try and encourage more ladies to consider the vets. I would say that the most competitive age groups are the 50s and the 60s. 70s and 75s are good, and the 40s, we're beginning to get more people involved again. So anybody who's coming up for the vets for next year, Mark, in a couple of years, we'll be pleased to see you. But you might find that the rate of playing and the pressure is going to be tremendous. You will enjoy it, but by God, you'll be knackered by the end of the day, I can assure you.
Okay. Right, good note, Mark. Do you want to ask the girls anything?
Well, I just wanted to pick up straight away on basically Sue and Emma's impression of Scottish vets. Obviously, you've been to tournaments in Scotland looking through it. Just what's your thoughts on what Ian was saying there? Sue, what do you think, or your perception of Scottish vets?
Well, I've been to the home counties twice in Perth and loved every minute of it. Loved the stadium at the, what is it?
Bells.
The whiskey place.
Go on, it was my kilt that put you up to it, wasn't it? that turns you on.
No, I loved it, and I loved the social side of it. It is intense, you know, the Six Nations is intense. If you're playing team event, singles, doubles, you know, it's full on. But, you know, Scotland are great at hosting the 7 counties.
Thank you very much for that compliment, Stuart.
Cool,
Much
aren't we?
appreciated.
But yeah, no, not a problem. It's been brilliant.
And the standard's got better, isn't it, since we've been playing?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
As Ian said, you know, there are definitely stronger players coming through. You know, there's no one is a foregone conclusion when you rock up and play Scotland or Wales or any of the countries. But
Guernsey,
yeah,
strong.
very, very strong players coming through, and it's, yeah, very competitive.
What about your own favourite events? Obviously mentioned about the home countries. What about Sue, you mentioned earlier about the obviously World Bronze, but what other events do you enjoy playing in, or that you look forward to in the calendar?
Well, we have 7 Masters events throughout the season, and when I was a little bit younger, I used to do all the Grand Prix, the senior Grand Prix in England. Unfortunately, I was outpriced to enter them because the entry fees just got too much. But I loved playing the top seniors. I used to play band 1 and 2, I think. Had some good wins. Loved being in touch with the senior and younger players, but it just got too expensive. So I love our Vets Masters. Every alternate year we have the World Europeans and the Six Nations, and we also have a Dare Club every 2 years, which is not sure where it started. I think it was between Reading and Dare Club, and then it just materialised. So I've been to that a few times in Istanbul, Sofia in Bulgaria. So all our events are, you know, we're both on the committee, so we know the work behind that goes on. There's nothing I don't love about it. My downside is where I live. I'd have to travel an hour for a decent league match.
Yeah.
So that's the only downside of living where I live. But any event's good, as long as you're playing, table time, playing players.
Good.
Holly or Mark, have you got a follow-up?
Yeah, no, just for Emma, but any sort of different events, or is it similar to Sue, or is it something locally that you enjoy playing in?
It's very similar. We love, I mean, the ones we live for basically are the Masters events, not only for the, you know, because we're basically playing the top players in the country most of the time, but the Vets British League is also really good, which obviously runs the same format as the Women and the Junior British League. So that's 2 weekends, and again, that's all the top players. As a team event, as you know, we don't get a huge amount of team events in table tennis. It's very much individual, so it's very nice to play a team event. So that is really good. I'm down in Bristol. The Bristol League is really strong, so that's a very good sort of competition as well. But it's, for us, it's the Masters events. It's, as Sue said, six, 7 a year, different parts of the country, almost 1 a month. And I would say that's the main thing really we've been missing since obviously there's been no competition and no table tennis played. Yes, we've missed playing, but we miss seeing each other. You know, we miss that contact with each other, which in the Vets, I would say for the majority of people is the most important thing, is the contact and the sort of friendship that everyone's developed over the last, you know, however many years. And that's the bit we miss.
I think
we're playing with people that we've known from, you know, cadets, aren't we?
Yeah.
So, you know, there's other players that have played since then, and it's all strong players. You know,
and I think, yeah, just me obviously touching on you know, obviously the Vets events in Scotland. I had the pleasure quite often, the Vets events or after an event on the Saturday at Bathgate for the Hall. So I had the pleasure of someone asking me a year ago where I was looking forward to the Vets event the next day. And I was, well, I'm not quite a vet yet, so it was a bit offensive. But I think the point behind it is that it's looking forward to these events and sort of coming forward. And I think obviously Ian's done a great job with that in Scotland, is that all the players, I mean, even when playing local league games in Edinburgh or Dundee, they're always talking about the Vets events. And I think obviously it's a great promotion.
Mark, I just point out that I am not the Vets. I am not the Scottish Vets. We have a committee, and it's the whole committee that's got to be thanked, not just me.
Yeah.
They're my support, or I'm their support. So it's not a one-man show. Please don't think that.
Okay, let's get a younger perspective on this. What have you got?
So do you prefer playing individual events or team events?
Oh, I think I like team events because you get the support from all your team. You know, table tennis is still an individual activity, but you're really fighting for your teammates, and usually, you know, me and Sue play in the same team in Vets British League. You know, and we're fighting for each other, and you know, win or lose, you know, you're then supporting your teammates. So, and we get very few team events in table tennis. So I think that I do prefer the team events possibly a little bit more than the individual. I don't know what Sue thinks. If Sue agrees.
No, I mean, the team events they're just a delight to be part of, aren't they? You know, when we've got our team together, we've all got each other's backs.
Yeah.
You know, it's a laugh. We do take it seriously. We fight for every point. We encourage each other. But at the end of the day, we're going to go to the pub. But you know, I think we've got a very good history with our Vets British League team.
Yeah.
And
I've been Dunsworth here as well. I have played for Scottish teams amongst others, and I must admit I prefer the team event, but I really prefer doubles. I've very lucky to have had a few good doubles partners. One in particular, Carol McLean. We won the Scottish over 60s last year, and I've been runner-up in the Six Nations individual, well, the doubles event, and the one in outside Wolverhampton. What do you call the place? Aldersley, was it?
yeah,
Yeah,
Leisure Village.
yeah. And myself and my partner, we were over 60 when we were runner-up in over 50s, and it was a great. You know, I find playing doubles is fantastic. It's a team and individual, if you know what I mean.
I mean, me and Emma have got a long history with doubles. We've won a few Six Nations, haven't we? And whatever titles. My favourite doubles is the mixed doubles.
Yeah.
I managed when I was 40 to get a scratch partner of Andy Trott. And I think the last he told me, because he kept saying, "Can I give up yet?" I think we've got 47 Masters and Nationals.
Wow.
I said, well, when we get 50 Masters titles, you can stop. And,
Wow.
and Andy, you know, the games we've had with you are just mind-blowing.
Great games, aren't they? Yeah.
Right, Holly, back to you.
Who is your most influential coach and why?
Oh, crikey. Dave Fairholm.
Yeah, me too.
Brawler.
Dave's here.
He's done that retainer again.
No, Dave was a fabulous coach. When he coached me at it was Centre of Excellence, Dave, wasn't it, back in the day in Harrow? You know, in the junior days. I've been very lucky, you know, as Sue has, to work with some of the top coaches like Dave, Nicky Jarvis. Nicky has been a great coach at Eastern Region. But then I'm indebted to, you know, the coach that started me off when I was 9. You know, he considered me a little bit too young to be starting, you know, at that age. I think my mum twisted his arm at the time, and you know, the rest, as they say, is history. So, you know, I've got to be thankful to him, because if he hadn't taken me on, you know, you don't know what you'd have accomplished. So it would have been him, and then obviously I've been very lucky to work with so many fabulous coaches over the years, and I don't think any one would really stand out, because they've all got their, you know, sort of the sort of positives, and everyone just brings something extra and sort of a different dimension to your game. But certainly, you know, you're very lucky to work with sort of Dave and Nicky Jarvis are probably the 2 top ones for me.
Well, I'll put Mike Tupmansworth in again. I think my best coach was my first one, Elizabeth or Betty or Bessie Dunbar, whatever you want to call her. She got me started off in the right lines way back in 1960. Unfortunately, she left Dundee area to work in London and came back in the 1980s. But I think when she went away, Dundee lost a tremendous coach, and the standards, I think, of coaching and the juniors coming through just went down slightly. Well, it went down a great deal, but that was arrested probably the 1970s had an upsurge, and I would say that thanks to him, Bessie Dunbar, I am where I am.
Same with me, Holly. I had a coach from the Friday Night Table Tennis Club. We had a coach called Hugh Bartholomew, so he's my first coach. Then I got, I don't know what you call it, fast track to Amiga in Reading, where we had Pete Charters. And I remember we had Andrew and Matthew side. Matthew walked in one day and couldn't even reach the table. You know, he was that big. And so Pete was a big influence. Then came Dave and Pete Simpson, Don Parker. The list goes on. I can't think of another one that I'm thinking of. Sandra Ryder, like for the vets, is probably the best tactician that I've ever met. Who knows that? Quite hard to tell a player to do it, but you know, spot on tactician. You know, over the years, I think each level you go to, you have another coach that pushes you that little bit further with more knowledge.
Well, Holly, you're on a roll, eh? Getting some good feedback. Have you got another one?
Were there many girls playing when you started playing?
Well, I was quite lucky, and you know, this is another debate as to we look at why girls give up sort of around the age of 15, 16, 17, and that's the $1 million question that we might even cover next week. But I was quite lucky when I was that age that there was 3 of us that were, again, really good mates. And I think that's one of the important things, that if you're friends with the people you play with, you know, you're more encouraged to carry on playing. So up to the age of 17, yeah, there was sort of a number of girls that were playing around the county where I was living. And we spurred each other on. You know, we were of a very similar standard. Unfortunately, those 2 aren't playing anymore, although we're still in touch, which I think is testament to sport in general. In touch with these people that, you know, you knew when you were younger. So yeah, there was a reasonable amount, and we had, you know, the top names that were playing. We had the Bellingers, or Jackie and Lisa Bellinger, at the top of the game. We had Helen Lower, the Marlings, Sally and Sam Marling. You know, there were some fabulous players there. You know, I wasn't at that top level there. I was just sort of almost on the sort of the rung underneath it. But yeah, there was some fabulous women players at that stage.
When I started playing, there was a tremendous number of women. I can remember Olive Hawkins and Leslie Barry, for example, and there was a woman called, was it Mary Shields or somebody? In Dundee, we had Sally Stewart and Doreen Donaldson, who were, you know, really good players, but they, I think, married and stopped playing, started work, whatever. We had Marjorie Murray and Wilma Nixon. And then there was a gap. Then we had Elaine Forbes or Elaine Smith. And I don't think there's been the same number of players. I know when I first started, there were a lot of girls playing, but you wouldn't say that they were going to be brilliant. There were, you know, Elaine was a natural, so were Wilma and Marjorie Murray. But there was, that was seemed to be a lot of them were coming just for the fun of it, as opposed to taking it maybe too seriously. And I think one thing I meant to say to Holly about coaching, I often feel you can get overcoached.
Yeah. Well, we'll cover that next. We'll cover that.
That's something you can think about.
Yeah, so I was blessed at Amiga. I had, you know, probably one of the questions later on, my heroes, Karen Witt.
Yeah.
We had Alison Gordon, we had Mandy Sainsbury. The list goes on. You know, I had the Side brothers to play with, but women, Andy Wellsman, David Barr, Colin Wilson. You know, Amiga was blessed, really. The Stokes, Jimmy Stokes.
Yeah.
You know, I was spoiled for choice, you know, we all practiced. And we had the Centre of Excellence at Bullmarsh.
Yeah, yeah. Right, so quick fire time, Mark, or have you got a burning question for?
No, it's probably a good stage before we sort of move on to more about the ladies' career and vets. So if we go for quick fire now, if Holly wants to go.
We'll start with Emma. Are you ready for your quick fire, Emma?
Feeling the pressure.
Okay, so were you spin based or power based?
What now?
Now and when you were like a cadet.
More spin based now. Spin and follow it up with some power. I think when I was a junior and a senior, I think I just tried to hit everything. Okay, you just try and, you know, belt everything that came over the net, but you have to be a little bit more thoughtful now. You can't move quite as quickly, and if you hit it hard and it comes back, you don't get it. So yeah, certainly more spin based now.
Is your timing early, top of the bounce, or late?
Should be top of the bounce, but sometimes I let it drop a little bit, and I shouldn't. And of course, you're giving a bit more time to your opponent. So I will. That's what one of the things I work on is hitting it top of the bounce or a little bit early.
Your most effective or strongest stroke?
Probably most effective, probably a backhand open up, my backhand spin, backhand loop. The effective one when it goes on, although it's about one in 75, is a backhand smash. I love playing it, but it's, you know, you need a helmet the other end if it doesn't go on.
Nobody's getting it back.
If it goes on.
Your least effective or weakest stroke?
Probably that backhand smash. Or a push.
From any player, one stroke you wish you had?
Ooh. Ban Zhendong's backhand flick.
Your best or favourite serve?
A little forehand kicker, short to the forehand.
The best server you've ever received against?
Sue Collier.
Your favourite opponent type?
An attacker, somebody who hits the ball at me.
Least favourite opponent type?
Oh, someone who pushes and chisels it. Yeah, can't stand that.
Best player ever played against?
Sue Collier, present company accepted, obviously. I would say Europeans. There was an Italian girl. I forget her first name. Elise. I lost her in the course.
Arissi.
That's it. Yeah.
Stockholm.
Phenomenal player, and she went on to win a Europeans, but I lost her.
Yeah, she won Stockholm.
Yeah.
The victory that gave you the most pleasure?
Probably that nationals we spoke about at the beginning, when I hadn't won anything for 2 years.
And the player you most admire?
Sue Collier.
Let me get a tenner.
No, right, take that back. Sorry, Sue. Karen Smith. Karen Smith, if you ever played against Karen Smith, honestly, she's a brick wall. The older she gets, the better she becomes, and almost impossible to break down. And I've seen England juniors almost in tears because they can't beat her. You know, she's, yeah, incredible player.
Is Karen Smith Karen Rogers in my language?
Yeah. Chris's sister.
That's
Right.
Same question for Sue.
okay, so were you spin based or power based?
I think very similar to Emma. Spinny, and then obviously tried to get it. We were taught 3-ball, 5-ball attack. So it's serve, set yourself up for the next point. So spin and then set yourself up to get in.
Is your timing early, top of the bounce, or late?
Ideally top of the bounce, but probably late now, although when I was younger, I do have quite good touch around the net, so I do try and take the ball early. That's one of my assets, but as you get older, it doesn't quite work. You have half an hour to think about it now.
Most effective or strongest stroke?
Forehand down the line.
Least effective or weakest stroke?
Backhand waft, as we call it in the vets.
From any player, one stroke you wish you had?
Oh, Karen Witt's backhand loop.
Your best or favourite serve?
The one that nobody could get back.
Best server you've ever received against?
You know what? It's really odd. It's probably a man. If I had to play against my mixed doubles partner, I wouldn't get one serve back. Emma's got really good serves. Sanya's got really good serves. Sarah's got really good serves. Rosa's got really good serves. It goes on and on. Probably Andy Trott.
Favourite opponent type?
Attacker. Looper. I like to block. Ideally, I like to be up at the net, controlling the table with a soft wrist. If I get pushed back, I can fight my own until I'm out of position.
Least favourite opponent type?
Long pimpled blocker.
The best player you've ever played against?
Probably the chopper from, I think she was Chinese stroke German, called Chanzona. I got to the last 8 in Ho Hot in Inner Mongolia, and she was a defender, and I'd need a crane to pick her chops up, basically. No chance.
The victory that gave you the most pleasure?
It was my world bronze.
And the player that you most admire?
I quite like the European players, so I like Van Schooten, I like Timo Boll, I like Ovcharov. Anybody, but anybody with a character. Probably Van Schooten is up there.
That's
Well done.
Because he's quite nice looking as well.
Mark, anything for the girls?
Well, I mean, I'm just listening to that after doing my research and watching clips. So I don't see enough forehand down the lines. Emma, there's definitely not enough kickers to the forehand on the serve. I think you need to look back at these answers and then use them as a coaching video in your own game and start doing more of it. I've just
There's always room for improvement.
Yeah, always. I mean, we sort of touched upon it earlier about like the Vets Association, and both of you mentioned also being on the committee. How does it relate to the governing body, basically, of table tennis? I mean, part of when we're running these sessions or doing these YouTube every Monday, we're obviously part of my question or my angle is how is table tennis can we come more together, especially within the UK, and basically having a sport for all. But obviously the Vets, you have such a good mix of people and socially coming together. But how does it link in with the governing body? Is there support, or do you feel like you're on your own?
I think the way, I mean, Sue's been on the committee longer than I have, so she's got a bit more of the sort of historical aspect. But because I think we're such a successful society, there's part of us that actually, wants to keep a little bit apart from that. Although we are affiliated, our 40s, we feed into the 40s ranking list. So the 40s is kind of ranking list is run by Table Tennis England, and then the 50s and above ranking list is run by the Vets. So there are some crossovers, but we have such an effective, a bit like Ian was mentioning, such an effective and hard-working committee that I think the Vet Society, and it's grown in strength certainly in the last nearly 10 years since I've been a vet, and I think we want to keep that way. I know it seems a little bit, protective a little bit, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. And we're going from strength to strength at the moment. Sue mentioned costs. We are able to keep our costs down. That there's not so much sort of costs involved. So that's, why we sort of keep not away from Table Tennis England, but, we keep the organisation within the Vet Society.
Sue, anything to add? Or?
I think we run alongside Table Tennis England, don't we? We're in association with them, but we are a separate entity. And I think on our own, we do flourish. I mean, we've got people in their 90s playing. I know Table Tennis England run the 40s ranking. There's a lot of people 40 to 100.
Yeah.
That we support. And
Can
Let me ask you that
Scottish
next
vet.
question, Mark, whether, you know, how the vets links in with the Scottish Association.
Right.
Yeah.
Scottish vets, we've been on our own really since the word go, but looking at it realistically, we affiliate to the Table Tennis Scotland. We run our own events. We are financially self-sufficient. We've got to find £7,000 roughly every 6 or 7 years to host the home countries thing. We've never ever gone outside that as such, apart from the year we've got lottery funding. We work beside, hand in hand with Table Tennis Scotland. I've got a good relationship with both Richard Yule and Terry McLernan. Another way of looking at it is that if we can run the vets, it means that Table Tennis Scotland have more people to run things like the schools, the juniors, cadets, or whatever. And you know, we do work with Table Tennis Scotland. We invite any of the committee members, board members, to come to our events and see how we run them. I think that both Richard and Terry have been once or twice, and I think they're actually quite taken aback by how well we keep the thing going with 70 odd people on 18 tables in 4 or 5 different age groups. There's never been a bad word between our association and Table Tennis Scotland. We have a friendly relationship, but we're separate entities, and I think it works perfectly. What do you think, Mark?
My perception is that it does, and I think the other flipping it a little bit is, I mean, obviously we're talking about a governing body, and obviously Table Tennis England, Table Tennis in Scotland, but part of it is how can basically that governing body take lessons from the Vets Society, or what you're doing, how you're running tournaments in Scotland, Ian, and how the committee's running tournaments in Scotland at your end. And I suppose it's that idea of having that people sharing ideas, because what we're not blessed with in table tennis is a lot of people give up their own time, and it's their own volunteers doing things. And I suppose it's getting together and sharing best practice and idea, where part of, we've shared it again over and again, is coming out of where we've been recently. We have an opportunity of, we have obviously fantastic guests coming on here. We have a lot of experience where we can come out of this maybe with sharing best practice and best ideas, so we can make
I think first of all,
for everyone.
bear in mind that us vets, a lot of us are retired, early retired. We've got time on our hands. We're not trying. I mean, I know when I was doing Dundee chairman, vets chairman, I was teaching infants at schools. You know, it was quite a time-consuming thing, and of course, my church choir work and playing the organ, etc. I think that the veterans, the people that run the veterans, have got the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They are retired or semi-retired. They're able to, if they are working, we're able to work around things like meetings. We are not governed by companies law as Table Tennis Scotland is. We don't have very many meetings during a season. We've got one at the end of the season to look at the selection of teams, and another one to confirm it, and that's about it. We don't have meetings for the sake of having meetings. You know.
Right, I'm going to move on because I'm mindful of the fact. Callum, have we had anything on YouTube tonight? Callum still with us?
Yes. Yep. We have one question from Joanne Smith. Is there doubles in the team events? And if yes, how often do you practice your doubles?
Asking.
There's no doubles in Vets British League. There's doubles in the Masters and the Nationals. But usually you play with a player in your doubles that probably live in an opposite part of the country. So the only time that you play is at the events. So it's yeah.
So you practice all day Saturday.
In Scotland, we have at the national championships or during the season, we have men's doubles and ladies doubles events in age groups and also open. And also in the Six Nations, sorry, the home countries vets, there is a doubles combination in all teams. There's a mixed doubles and over 60s along with the men's doubles. And the women's event is 2 singles, doubles, reverse singles. So we have
what I'm shocked about is that the 2015 Home Nations doubles winners haven't popped up there to say that you didn't practice beforehand. Was that when you won it, Sue and Emma? But as Isle of Man, was that when the 2015 Home Nations? You never practiced beforehand.
We played doubles, you know, quite a bit over the years, but we haven't practiced.
But by our age, you know each other's game.
Yeah.
You got telepathy going on.
But I'm going to guess, Sue, that you got the tactics in the bar the night before sorted before you went out to play, based on what you're saying.
Emma probably did have. Yeah, I was tucked up in bed.
Which she leaves me astray.
In Scotland, we have 3 training sessions for all players in the squads in the Grange Club in Stirling, in Falkirk rather, but thanks to Jerry Campbell. And we encourage all doubles pairings to have a practice session, whether it's 1 or 2, not just necessarily playing women against women, but women against men, to give them some idea of the strength of better competition, possibly on different age groups as well. So
yeah, we don't have that. We practice, you know, if I want to play with Emma, I've got to, you know, drive from Manchester to Bristol. So, you know, it doesn't work for us. I like the idea of having, you know, vets training sessions, but to be honest, the younger vets, we all still work full time.
Yep.
And we're on the committee, so that work is done alongside a full time. Also, I think you are, Emma, as well. We're both on the executive committee, so you've got, you know, quick decisions to make. You've got to be totally committed to it. It takes up a lot of time. I mean, I also do the first aid, so I carry the DFib, the first aid kit. You know, the committee is solid now, isn't it? Whereas I think historically it used to be, I don't know the word, it's now transparent. And another thing I want to say in about Scotland is it's so nice, and I'm talking about Terry McClernand, MBE, of course. The commitment they put in at Drumchapel to drive in all the kids, I call them kids, but you know, the driving they do to come down to our tournaments and to the Women's and Vets British League, you know, it's a credit to Scotland. Yeah, without driving, you know, down the road, but it's a credit. Drumchapel is a credit to Scotland.
Good. Great testimony there. Callum, any more from YouTube?
That's all for now, Dave.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, back to Holly. She's been on form tonight.
What coaching style do you prefer now, and is it the same as what you preferred like when you were like a cadet, or has it changed?
Great question. I think when you're a cadet and a junior, you kind of, the way that I was taught, and it's not necessarily the way that people are coached now, is I was coached to think for myself and not be over reliant on a coach in your corner. So I think I was coached to analyze players as you develop and as you grow up, because if you're suddenly all, you know, your coach is in the corner, you know, you can worry a little bit. And I think sometimes that's what's lacking a little bit now. So I like the idea of being, when I was coached, of being asked to work it out and to analyse and to think why a shot wasn't working, or why was I losing, or, you know, that particular aspect. And I think it makes you a better player as you get older. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, was that your first coach? That was very, I would have said that was very forward thinking in those days.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and I think because I wanted to learn, and I didn't want to be told all the time. I said, no, try and let me. I think that was partly me as well, of wanting to work it out. So rather than somebody just like to be told, right, tell me what to do, tell me where to hit it or where to place it, and I'll do it. But I don't think you learn necessarily that way. I think, you know, you might get some more losses to start with, but then I think you become a better player long term.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the bigger battles you have, where you learn, where you haven't got a coach, say, so you've got all the history. Well, we've got 40 odd years of history of coaches of different levels, and I think the best time for me was when I learned to stand on my own 2 feet.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so at the end of a set, I didn't have to go and talk to anybody. You can just keep warm, think about what you've just done, think what you can do better. Sometimes it's when you're younger, I think, can be more of a distraction. And I think people should be taught, like we were, Emma, to stand on your own 2 feet and think for yourself. It's like a game of chess.
Yeah.
We've had
Can I just say something to Holly about
many
coaching?
battles that are just a game of chess and the best player wins.
Can I just say something about coaching, Holly? When I was a youngster, there was one thing that was very impressed upon me at the very beginning, and which seems to have gone out the rule book, and I'm going to offend a few people, I know that, is how to serve properly. There's so many people nowadays foul serving, it's unbelievable. And the coaches don't seem to be able to stamp it out at the very beginning. Comments, girls?
Well, I tell you what, they don't have to comment. Is 99% of matches are umpired by fellow players, and they don't umpire, they just keep the score. So
yes, exactly.
they don't give a damn out it. That is where, I mean, I took Stuart Crawford to a European Championships, and it was served foul served 7 times in a row for a serve that he was doing every day of the week back in Britain, and
Never
nobody
pulled up.
Holly, go on, you're doing well. Come on.
What made you decide to take up table tennis?
Yeah, no, we'll get that next week. Holly can ask that one next week. Okay, Mark.
We always say, touching upon like the social side or the fun side of vets table tennis. Can you recall your funniest moment playing an event or something that happened during an event? Maybe something. I think Emma's got something straight away. Do you?
Yeah.
Well, close to it, but
How long you got?
yeah.
Oh, there's too many to mention. The whole thing is just so much fun with a great group of people. I did remember one evening, for some bizarre reason, giving Sue a piggyback just across the road to the Premier Inn and tripped. We both ended up with eggs on our head, headbutting the door into the Premier Inn. That was a memorable one. But you know, there's a few sort of things like that. But yeah, they're just such a great group of people. You know, you all turn up to the hotel on the Friday night. Everyone has a drink in the bar. You know, there's a bit of banter with everybody. And I think our favourite time, particularly, is on the Saturday when everyone comes back in drips and drabs from playing, and there's a bit of Mickey taking, and who's won, beating who's lost against who, and you know, there's a bit of Mickey taking if somebody's lost to somebody they shouldn't have done. But it's all in good. It's a good spirit. Nobody takes by it. And you know, tomorrow is another day, and it's forgotten. So it's, you know, I can't emphasise the social side and, you know, the friendship, particularly in the vets, and I think that's what makes it such a strong society.
I think
another funny moment was when the 3 of us were sat on the table at the Dare Club tournament and trying to take a picture with the flag, weren't we? I think Denise was taking it, and suddenly we realised that the table was tipping up, and she managed to just catch the point where it was tipping up. So I was in sheer dread, holding the flag, going, I think Rose Rayton was about to fall off the edge, and Emma was in a catalogue pose.
I remember once in the Isle of Man, there was a doubles match between 2 English couples, and it was when we had when the plastic balls first came out in was it 2016 or thereabouts, and one English couple, one of them served the ball had hit the line and split.
Frozen.
One half went one way, and a chap put back the other ball, and it went in, and the umpire didn't know who won the point. And there was an almighty, well, I think there was a bit of a row about it, But it was one of these things. What happens next? Was it a let? How do you replay the point? But I've never seen that before when the ball actually split in two, and it was seamless.
Good point.
I've got my own question is, you've tasted victory. We'll be talking about this next week. You've obviously tasted defeat. Do defeats hurt just as much now as they did when you were in your prime? I'll start with Emma. Or is it more in perspective now?
More in perspective, you know, I mean, I don't know how countless times me and Sue have played against each other, and we're, you know, the best of friends, and yet we you know, somebody says love all, we both want to win, and that's, you know, that's the competitive nature in us. But then when at the end of the game, win or lose, you know, there's a big hug and there's a well played. It might be through gritted teeth, but you're generally pleased if somebody's played, you know, if they played better than you. I would say it hurts for about 30 seconds. And then after that, I might think, right, what have I done? Why did I, you know, what did I do that lost the game? So there comes that analytical bit, and then you move on. So I think it's more in perspective now than it was as a junior. And I see some of the juniors now, and they get themselves into all sorts of, you know, distress if they're winning a game or if they're losing a game, and they come off and they're tears and throwing a bat. And I just, you know, you want to say to them, put it in perspective. Yes, you want to win, but dare I say it, and this is coming from a PE teacher who's very competitive, it is only a game.
Yeah.
So yeah, just put it in perspective. Isn't, you know, nobody wants to lose, but you put it in perspective.
Yeah. So during your early years, you were striving to be the best player in England. You had the talent. Did your defeat hurt more then, or does it hurt more now, or how would you?
Definitely then.
Yeah.
Definitely then, because like Emma says, you know, the kids that you see, you know, we can go into a Women's British League and have a team that's got a combined age of 170, and we play a team that's got a combined age of 40, and they end up in tears, and you actually feel sorry for beating them. And we've had to console a lot of children, good players, but I think with the experience, you and maybe the training techniques that differ, experience counts for a lot of points. So you can beat some of the younger players, and they don't get it. They sort of like, I can't lose to that old woman, you know. But so to us, defeat is analytical, it's fitness, it's concentration. I think when you're younger, you don't think like that. You just think you should win. You know, you're meant to win, you're told to win. And if you don't win, then you're distraught. And I think that's quite sad that a lot of pressure's put on the youngsters, me included. I was a nasty cadet. You know, I've thrown my bat, and, you know, now it's disappointing. You know, but we get on with it and going over here, don't we?
Yeah.
Right. Mark, do you want to finish with a big one? Have you got a
no, I don't mean. I think it's a great link to next week about getting into the ladies' minds about obviously table tennis and the mindset behind it. Even from a personal point of view, is coming close to vets. I used to get upset. I think that point of a junior losing a big game, and I think back now to matches I lost when I was like the Scottish national final. Still annoys me that I lost that, but actually when I lose a match now, it's that perspective, and I think that's what comes with age, is you actually put that in perspective and go, well, I actually still really enjoyed playing. Annoyed I lost, but actually going back to matches when I was younger, I hate them and still hate thinking about them. So I think it's a great link to next week of talking about the mindset of table tennis players, and especially.
So one thing Pete Charter's always said is you always respect who you're playing. You always give them respect. You know, if you do that.
It's like us, you know, that you get in our vets tournaments, you know, you've got 200 odd players. There's a few players who, you know, it is the end of the world if they lose a match. And, you know, we know those. But then again, it's, as you mentioned, it's that mindset, isn't it? Everybody has a different mindset. And it's how you cope with that.
Yeah. Right. Next week, I'll be turning back the clock 40 years. We'll be looking at young Emma Hurley and a young Sue Collier, who I remember, and I'll be wanting to know why they've stayed in the game this length of time, playing cadet internationals, playing world student internationals, winning the National Schools Championship, playing for England at all levels, and and why. What do we need to do to get more girls in table tennis? So I'm really looking forward to that next week. I think this has been a good starting point. So on behalf of Table Tennis Scotland, a big thank you to Callum, who's been very quietly behind the scenes, to Holly, who's asked some fantastic questions tonight, to my right-hand man, Mark, who's we bounce off each other week after week now. We'd make a good doubles pair, Mark, I think, you and I.
Yeah.
And big thanks to Ian, who's given us a great insight into the vets scene in Scotland from all levels and the strength of it. But massive thanks to my two special guests tonight, who we'll be seeing next week, Emma Rose and Sue Collier. Thank you very much indeed.